You're listening to Japan Baseball Weekly. News, interviews, analysis, and hot takes about all 12 NPB teams. Hosted by Jim Allen and John E. Gibson.
Hi, and welcome to the Japan Baseball Weekly podcast. It's for the week of March 5th. I'm John Gibson, and this should be a super fun show because I'm with my partner, Jim Allen, here on a Saturday night, but also for this week's show, as those of you viewing YouTube can see, we're joined by Claudio Rodriguez of Baseball Japones and also Jason Coskrey of the Japan Times. Thank you, gentlemen, and welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now,
this time of year is great because we get baseball, but we also have allergies.
Yeah, it's still preseason, but it's mid-season for cedar pollen allergies.
So I think, Jim, you had a really bad about 10 years ago, right?
No, I've had it. I've had it for decades, but my medicine now is. I think what happened was that year, it started earlier than normal, like it did this year, and I didn't have my medicine for a couple of days when we were recording one day.
So shoot, so he was walking around saying, "Give me drugs, give me drugs."
Come having Jim Nishi flashbacks. Good
No,
drug.
not quite. All right, Claudio, thank you so much for taking the time on an early, I guess it's a Saturday morning in Toronto. So how you been? How you doing? And how you liking the preseason so far?
Good. Everything is fine. We just had 30 centimeters of snow last night. A huge blizzard came through. Like everything's covered.
No, send it back. Send it back. It's spring.
I know, I'm telling you. But no, and that great. I mean, the preseason games have been great. Samurai Japan preseason or pre-tournament games have been great too. And looking forward to the season. Like some really good signings during the winter. We have the Fighters new stadium that looks really good, and I'm looking forward to visit someday. I'm excited. Nice to have some baseball back.
All right, Jason, you can make it tonight, man. You and I are both suffering pretty big. I got a sneeze that's building up here right now as we speak.
It's touch and go. It's touch and go.
I know that guy. He gets thrown out a lot, though. All right. Well, before we actually get started, welcome to our Pacific League prediction special. And before we get started, I just want to know what you guys have seen so far in the camps. I've been trying to watch as much of the news as I can every day. Most of the news is about the Samurai and the WBC coming up, and it's just, it's tough to get news on the other 12 teams. It's like they almost don't exist. And in fact, I think you could even say, I don't know, I know you're not here in Japan, Claudio, but it's Samurai fever because, after Darvish arrived and he did his little gig with the jet plane that he came in on, Shohei Ohtani also came in on a private jet, and he said to all the rock stars, "Hold my gear," because because this guy everywhere he goes, these paparazzi are trying to get video images, pictures, and then today he hits batting practice at Nagoya Dome, and he's hitting monster shots all over the place. This is ridiculous. I don't even know if he at the moment right now, I think if he sneezes and puts the tissue in the trash, about 100 people are going to run for that trash can to try to get that tissue.
Yeah,
on eBay,
well, I've seen some.
It's probably good for Darvish, though. He gets a break.
Yeah. It was like when Ohtani showed up, he's like, good, phew.
No, I've seen some images in Twitter and other social media, and it's insane. Like the people lining up to buy stuff, Samurai Japan stuff, and like everywhere. It's been amazing. So hey, it's great stuff.
I was just watching the news, and they were talking about. I was joking because, of course, you guys know I used to live in Nagoya, and I said, now people nationwide have descended upon the poor city, and the population has doubled.
Hey, I can imagine.
Yeah, they had in the day job, my they took a photo of the crowd on the side in that parking lot on the side of Nagoya Dome where they were waiting from early in the morning to get merchandise. And they did a good job on the photo. They made it look like there were thousands of people there because of the angle they took it. But they couldn't fit it into that space. But it was just a really good camera angle. It was probably 8,000 or so. Well, it looked like
Like many more.
Yeah, it looked thousands. It looked like 3,000 or 4,000 people. But you could
good for Nagoya. Nagoya keeps getting voted as the least desirable city in the country, so they got Otani in there for a couple of days.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, they're probably going to hold that vote this weekend. They figured that's why
least desirable.
They hosted Samurai Japan games so they could get more people to vote for them. Good one.
Least desirable, my foot. Those people who are writing that, they're undesirables. Don't come to my city. Stay out of my city. You said you Darvish getting a break, and I just remember this image. I think it was a couple weeks ago. Well, I don't remember how many days ago it was, but you Darvish threw his first bullpen session for WBC when he came in, and they're sitting and watching like little kids, or a group of pitchers: Hiroya, Miyagi, Yuki, Uragawa, Taisei Ota, Roki Sasaki, Keiji Takahashi, and I think some other pitchers, and they're just sitting around like kids, just watching him throw a bullpen. And I mean, they're like falling all over each other. Oh, did you see that curve, or did you see that splitter? I mean, it was ridiculous.
Sasaki recorded it.
Yeah. So this has been quite the. But any news that you guys have seen from the camps, from the 12 teams that have excited you, or has excited you at all, or interested you, Jim?
No, I would say most of the news from the camps. I haven't been watching a lot of TV, but I've been looking at the papers, and pretty much the newspapers have been the news from the camps was who's in the WBC in this camp. And what are they doing? And that was it. That was pretty much it. And then it was the guys are in the WBC camp, and the rest of you guys can go hang.
Jason, you see anything pique your interest?
Not much. I was but looking at what SoftBank was doing earlier, and like Ray Takahashi is trying to pitch his way into the rotation, and Kurihara's working his way back, Ryoya Kurihara. But
Kobayashi, I think you're thinking about Uebayashi. Seiji Uebayashi. He hit a home run in a game the other day, and I'm like, oh, that's right, he's still there.
About Ryoya Kurihara, not Seiji. I'm not talking about Uebayashi. Kurihara. Ryoya. No, I know. He's coming back from the ACL tear.
I know, but I was just playing. Yeah. I just remembered that. Speaking of guys making a comeback, Seiji Uebayashi is another guy.
He's making a comeback every other year because he keeps getting hurt.
That's true.
I guess,
I really like him. I think he's a really good player. He just can't stay on the field the last couple of years.
I guess the one that got me was Yoshinobu Okugawa. Yasunobu Okugawa. Yasunobu Okugawa with the Swallows, because I had missed in the winter that he declined to have Tommy John surgery, which the team recommended, and he went for a non-invasive procedure, and he's back throwing, and he's throwing hard apparently. But manager Shingo Takatsu said, yeah, he's throwing really good pitches, but his form looks like it shouldn't. So it's a work in progress, but we'll see. I mean, I think he had the platelet-rich plasma therapy and some other stuff done, but we'll see about that.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Let's start the prediction show now. We are starting to build a strong resume, I think, the group of us of prediction specials. And I really want to thank you again for taking the time. And, we have this email thread to tell everybody, and Claudio is always the first to answer. And he's always saying, anytime you guys need me, I'm here. And it's just beautiful. And then there's the other two guys, the one above me and the one below me, and they just kind of chime in when they wake up and remember. but here we are, and I'm real thankful that we're all together, because it's really it's a great time of year, minus the allergies and the pollen flying around. It's a great time of year, and we do miss Michael Westbay, whom we're missing because he was just inundated with work, he said, and he has helped us break down the teams in the past, and we are going to miss him. But thank you guys to bring some personality and some different kind of flavor and different perspective to these predictions that we do. And we're all just guessing and groping in the dark, but it's really fun. So this year I think we're going to go without the pitch clock. And I actually prefer to call it a play clock, because the pitch clock to me sounds like the onus is only on the pitcher, and the batter has to be ready too. And the batter can be called, as we saw in that Boston game, batter can be called for taking too much time and cost himself a strike. And with the bases loaded, 3-2 pitch and 2 outs in the 9th inning, that can be very costly. So I prefer to call it a play clock. But what's the surprise team? Who's the top rookie? What second or third year player is going to really make a jump? What manager is going to finally grow up? I think there's only one in the Pacific League we have to talk about, but we've got a couple of new skippers and who's going to really turn their teams around. And we've been doing this for years, so we certainly know all the answers to all these questions. So let's get it going. Up first is the Oryx Buffaloes, and that'll be Jim.
All righty dighty. Well, I don't have any answers. It's March 4th. So no answers here, just guesses. Okay, expected rotation: Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Hiroya Miyagi, Daisuke. This is really hard. Daisuke Yamaoka, Daiki Tajima, Satya Yamazaki, and the Cecil B. DeMille cast of thousands of extra Oryx pitchers who are going to be either in or out of the bullpen, in or out of the starting rotation.
Now, you did say Daisuke Yamaoka, right?
I wrote Daisuke. I did not. I
said that's all right.
By accident.
I thought you might have. Yeah, Daisuke. Let's get that right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that. The key additions. Well, the big addition is Tomoya Mori, free agent catcher from the Seibu Lions, is coming off an off season. So he's going back home to Osaka, and oddly enough, did not join that Seibu exodus to Sendai. So good luck. Good luck.
What's wrong with him? He didn't get a ticket.
Perhaps not. I don't know. I don't know the story there, but I'm a big fan of his, so I hope he does well. Jarrell Cotton is a 31-year-old right-handed pitcher who's most likely going to be in relief. I'm going to skip one guy. I'll go to Marwin Gonzalez because he's a name. Because when he was in his prime, he was an exceptionally good utility player. I mean, a really high quality player, but that was 7 years ago. So he's what's left of that. And Frank Schwindel, who's a 30-year-old first baseman. Now, the roster hits are 2. Masataka Yoshida, who's I think arrived in Japan today. I didn't see the news, but he should have arrived in Japan because he's supposed to be practicing with the team tomorrow in Osaka.
He was in the shadows of Darvish and Ohtani, so nobody could see him.
Yeah. Well, he would be in the shadows if he was standing 5 feet away. It's that stature thing. Okay. And catcher Torai Fushimi, who really had good timing with his free agency, because if Tomoya Mori's coming, I'm going to take off. So
hit the escape button.
He did indeed. Okay, the outlook. Yeah. Okay, Oryx for the last couple of years have had above average pitching, and they've got there's some weird looks in the Pacific League, but they've had above average pitching overall and below average defense. But the thing about them is that they've had one of Japan's best offenses, and they've done this despite, I would say, almost a complete and total lack of import production.
Yep.
So that's something to watch for and see. But I'm guessing that Frank Schwindel and Marwin Gonzalez aren't going to change that any. This Mori is a possible, he's not going to produce like Yoshida, but the talk of moving him to DH is kind of silly because he's never been a good hitter when he's been a DH, and that's that. I love the manager, and I love lots of things about what Oryx does. So it kind of pains me to say this, but my prediction for them is last place.
Last? Oh, precipitous! Oh.
Wow, that's definitely a surprise.
Just quite
Yeah,
the
it was a
baby switch
surprise.
there.
It was a surprise, but this is the system I use, and it's like teams that fit this profile tend to disappear off the radar.
Yes, for those watching
Right.
for the first time, Jim is a system quarterback. Okay, Jason, what do you got?
No, I don't have him that kind of.
That kind of took the wind out of took the air out of the room, I'm afraid.
He took the air out of the internet. Okay.
I wish.
I mean, like Jim, I like the pitching. Obviously, they've got. I mean, Jim named them. They got really good pitchers. Especially if Soichiro Yamasaki, if he can get himself into the rotation, that could be a really, really big addition for them. He pitched a few games last year, and then he ended up doing pretty well in the Japan series. He had a few control issues in some of those games, but man, he throws hard. And when he's on, he's hard to deal with. So I like him. They've got this guy, Leandro Cedeno, who they signed to an Ixte contract, and he was raking in Double-A for the Diamondbacks. And if he were to just, I don't know, catch fire in the minor leagues, and they sign him to a contract, that could be a deep cut, a sleeper. I don't know, and it would be something to help the offense. But Keita Nakagawa's got to step up. He was actually a pretty decent player last year for them anyway. I like Maury, but Maury's kind of he's run hot and cold the last 4 years. He hit 329, then he hit 251, then he hit 301, 309 or something, and then he hit 251 again. So I guess he's due for another 300 something season, but and maybe that'll help them offset losing Yoshida. Actually, I have them second though, because I think their pitching is going to be really good again. Although I do expect there's going to be a little bit of a drop off, I think, somewhere in there, and we'll see how Yuki Utagawa and Hiroshi Miyagi and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, if there's any sort of hangover that clouds them up a little bit this year. Because if you look at those guys pitched into late in the year, last 2 seasons, and now they're in the WBC, so they've had short off seasons the last 3 years. So we'll see if that catches up. But I like them in second place.
Okay, second place, Claudio.
Well, actually, I have them in first place, and the reason for that, not because I believe they're the most complete and the best performing team. They have great pitching. The offense is, I don't know how well they're going to do this year, but at the same time, I don't see any other team being better than them. The obvious choice would be SoftBank for first. But I have my doubts about SoftBank. They got a lot of signings during the winter, but I still don't see them being completely back on track where we were, a few years ago, where they were dominating. So basically, out of a better option for first place, I'm picking Oryx for first place. And talking about Cedeno. Cedeno, when he was signed, all my followers in Venezuela were saying, what team he's going to, because they ordered him to stop playing in the Venezuelan Winter League because he had signed for Japan, and everybody was excited what team he's going to, because it's a popular player there. But when I realized that, hold on, but he signed a minor league deal. What's going on here? It's a developmental player. It's not even a major contract. And people were like, but I don't know. Like, I mean, he's popular. He's a good player. Jason is right. He may be a surprise this year. They may get, they may call him up at some point and see him contributing to the team along, during the season. But I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But I still, by default, because there's no other better option, I have them finishing first.
Okay. This team hung around last season. I even kind of took it for dead for a while because the players just couldn't seem to get it going. But then they went on this run after the All-Star break, and everything just turned into a well-oiled machine. The pitching started working better. The bullpen started working great. They were scoring runs before, but the batters came along and they started scoring runs at a strong clip. So this whole, taking a turn with the title thing, we saw this before where the Dragons and the Fighters in 2006 and 2007, they both went to back-to-back Japan series. They each won one, and then they kind of dropped off. The Fighters dropped off and the Dragons dropped off too. So I do expect a little bit of drop off from the Buffaloes this year. It's very hard to win 3 in a row, first of all. So I'm not going to pick them to win the Pacific League again. But I do expect, just like Claudio said, the pitching is really good. If you look at proven pitchers, I think their staff is the best in the Pacific League. If you just look at proven guys, but I think a lot of things went right for them. They didn't have a lot of injuries in terms of catastrophic injuries. They had some subpar performances. I think Miyagi was kind of hazy all season. He was in a malaise, sort of didn't really have his, he wasn't like he was in his rookie year where he was pitching confidently and we figured this game's in the bag. It was giving up runners, giving up hits, struggling to get through 5 or 6 innings and getting pulled. But that's still good enough. You can get through 5 or 6 good innings, keep your team in the game to do well. So again, we didn't have much time to get ready for this. We usually have more information. It's March 4th, as Jim said. So from where they look right here, I think the leadership is still strong. I think they brought in some good players, particularly Mori. But forget all the numbers and the talent and the analysis and all this stuff. I just don't think there's a likelihood of a three-peat. So I definitely don't see whatever system Jim is using to see them tumble into last place and be the Buffaloes with an LOW at the end again. But who knows? Who knows? It's wide open. Anyway, I've got them finishing second. All right, let's go to SoftBank, and Jason's going to introduce them.
All right, the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. They say money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you a baseball team, and that's what Masatsuki Son has done here. Expected rotation. I think Shuta Ishikawa, I want to say the manager said he might get the start on opening day. It doesn't really matter in the long run, but Shuta Ishikawa, now Higashihama, Tomohisa Ozeki, Joe Gonko is probably going to be in there, Kohei Arihara, and then we'll see how many starts they can get out of Seo Shiwada again if they try that, or if Rei Takahashi does pitch his way into the rotation, or if Yugo Bando does get into the rotation, or whoever else they have, and Carter Stewart Jr. is around somewhere. So we'll see. Key additions, they got Kensuke Kondo, who was the top free agent this year. He's just a machine, and you saw he's got a couple hits tonight for Samurai Japan. They also got Kohei Arihara, also who I mentioned earlier, Joe Gonko, Roberto Osuna from Lotte, and they signed the super utility man Williams Astudillo, La Tortuga, and they got Courtney Hawkins, who passed a tryout in the winter and still with the team. So yeah, he does. Key loss is they lost a lot of guys. I'm not going to mention everyone, but I think obviously the main one's Kodai Senga. They lost the 2 Cubans, Yurispel Gracial and Alfredo Despagne, and Nobuhiro Matsuda, who didn't do much on the field, but he's a good clubhouse presence, and he's a bright guy, and he's one of those guys you like to have around. But he's now with the Yomiuri Giants, which is crazy to me. Anyway, outlook. I think when you look at the Hawks, they had a plus 84 run differential. If you look at what they did, their numbers during the season, they should have won more games than they did. And I think it's the second straight year they sort of underperformed their projections. But they had a winning record against every team except Oryx. They had a plus run differential against every team except Oryx. They faced, and really when they lost the pennant, they faced, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Hiroya Miyagi, and Daiki Tajima, and they were 5-11 in the games that those guys started. Those guys pitched about 104 innings against the Hawks. and have a 2.70 ERA combined. And they couldn't beat Tajima at all. They were 0-5 in the games he pitched. So that's kind of one thing. They could beat Oryx, and they could have won the pennant by a lot of games. But I like what SoftBank has on paper. You get Ryoya Kurihara back. They have this other guy, Isami Nomura, who hit 10 home runs last year, stole 10 bases. I think he might be the only guy who had double-digit home runs other than Yanagita, who's actually returning. He and Kurihara may be in a battle at third base, and whoever loses that is just going to be depth. And if he's good, then that's just really good depth for them. And they also get Seiji Uebayashi back, as you mentioned earlier. So I think the Hawks on paper have the potential to do a lot of really good things and be really, really good. I do have concerns, without Senga there. Now is Higashihama or Ishikawa ready to, be that guy for them? Higashihama is kind of said he was going to take on the role, and Ishikawa sort of got the stuff to take on the role. Adihara was really good when he was in Japan, but what kind of worries me is not only that he got knocked around in MLB, he got knocked around in the minors too. So I don't, we'll see how he comes back mechanically, how he comes back to facing pitchers here. Or I'm sorry, batters here, but I still think that SoftBank did enough. They threw around enough cash, and they might have probably bought themselves the pennant. So I am going to pick them first.
All right, Claudio.
Well, same as last year. I agree with Jason in the fact that they got a really good. They signed a whole bunch of new players that are going to be key for helping them perform better. And in theory, on paper, yes, they should win. They should be the strongest team in the league. But same as I did last year, I still don't see them in first. So I picked them second. But I have, for instance, Freddy Galvis. And I have mentioned this before in these prediction shows. When you don't get it the first year, like almost 100%, nobody gets it on the second year either. So like if you didn't understand it the first time, if you didn't adapt well to Japanese baseball the first year around, you're not going to do it on the second. So I don't see Freddy Galvis. He's here because he signed a 2-year contract to begin with. Otherwise, he would have been let go at the end of last year. So I don't expect him to do anything this year. Astudillo is a popular player, is a kind of a hustle guy, but again, I don't see him being Alfredo Espaine. I don't see him being Yudis Valgracial, hitting 20+ homers, driving in lots of runs, being the heart of the engine of the offense and the team. So, the Hawkins is a question mark. He could be really good, but he also could be, like a guy who hits 5 homers in the first 15 games and then doesn't do anything for the rest of the year. So you never know. So I still have question marks, doubts about that plan actually working. I like the players they have, and I think they have a talented team. I think the Osuna signings, that one should work fine. He should be probably the closer, and having Moinelo on the 8th and then Osuna on the 9th is probably going to help him get some wins there. But getting to that point with an advantage on the score, that's a different story. I don't know how well the pitching is going to work. I don't know how good these guys are going to be. The new import players in the in the hitting side. So I think they're good, but I still don't see them coming back to their dynasty days. So I'm picking them second.
All right. System Jim.
I have the Hawks winning, and it wasn't really I think I've picked them to win the last 5 years. And it's
join the club, get in line.
And there's no sentiment or emotion, and this is unfortunately this year I didn't do anything with who's leaving and who's coming because I really don't have a read on any of the new players.
It's March 4th.
What?
It's March 4th, just like you said. I mean, we're in our infancy in this season here. It
is indeed
really
March 4th, and I don't really have a clue. I don't put a lot of I mean, basically the team is, I mean, Kodai Senga was the big question mark leaving the team. But the Hawks have a thing, and the Hawks thing is they got so many people looking for work.
Yeah.
You look at the four Hawks who are on the national team for the WBC, and the only one who didn't sign on a non-roster developmental contract was the guy who's a free agent who just joined him over the winter. Basically, this team has got talent. It's got talent they don't know they have. They've got talent, and when an opening cracks open like Kodai Senga leaving, it's like it's just I don't want to use an insect analogy, but it's like you'd be surprised if you open that gap, what's going to come out. And I think there'll be some talent that we don't expect. I don't expect, but basically the things that have SoftBank again being a solid contender. And although I hate the Osuna move just because of who he is, of course we had that discussion on Twitter about another guy with serious issues with a personality signing for the Hawks. I think the Hawks will be jumping all over that guy if they think they need pitching.
I think they'll jump all over him if they get the opportunity.
I think if he's serious about it. Although I think he's busy playing his martyr. He's too busy playing his martyr card in the States.
Either that or he's going on another date. But
could be. That could be. But I shudder to think of that guy in Japan, where abuse against women is so. I won't say it's tolerated, but it's close to tolerated.
Yeah.
And the idea of him being in Japan just gives me the willies. So, but all that aside, I have the Hawks first. I think they're just too strong. The rest of the teams are these teams that have some good points going for them, and they got some weak spots. The Hawks are basically, they've got everything going for them, but they lost Kodai Senga. Losing the Cuban hitters is really nothing because they haven't done anything in 2 years. So, it's no big loss. I mean, I don't mean that. I mean, they were great. They were terrific players for them, but age was, I think at the beginning of last year, we saw that, the end of that road coming already.
Okay. All right. Well, and the player of whom you are speaking is Trevor Bauer, but
right.
It's just a rumor.
It's like his name refused to come out of my mouth for some reason.
That's fine. Just so people know.
I thought you were doing it on purpose.
No, I was not. I couldn't remember it.
Oh, okay. No, we're good. I just want people to know what we're talking about. So for me, I like the newcomers. Obviously losing Senga is an issue, but he's a guy who hasn't pitched an entire season for a while. So they're used to him being gone. They're used to having to manage. One of the persons we didn't mention, I think in the intro was Yuito Mori, whom I heard when I was watching one of these spring training practice games, wants to be a starter. And this is a pitcher who's always hurt and can't pitch as a reliever. So I don't know if he thinks that the 5 days of not pitching or 6 days of not pitching against live batting is going to help, but he still has to pitch and get ready. So I don't know how that's going to work, but I did hear about that. And I also heard that Ozeki, they're looking at him for opening day starter, but they've got talent in layers. Okay. So that's number one. And, they just suffered for so many injuries, and we're acting like they just lost. I mean, this is goes to show you, if you're in second, nobody cares about you, because the record for them and SoftBank last year was identical. So
right.
They had just as many wins and the exact number of losses and same number of ties. So they lost on a tiebreaker. So this is not a team coming back that limped to the finish line, so to speak. It just lost in the playoffs and couldn't advance. And A lot of that was just the excellent pitching of the Oryx Buffaloes. So, excuse me. So as we go along here, I'm just thinking, like I said, they've got talent in layers. They retooled, and then they made redundancy plans for their retoolers. So they they have a lot of guys in, like Jason pointed out. They've got Kurihara coming back. They also picked up Hiroki Mine from the Yokohama Bay Stars. Now, this is a player who has never really done anything in his career until last year, and he kind of, the past 2 years, I suppose, kind of got some hits here and there and made his name known, but he's still not a great player. But he's a good backup for Takuya Akai when they want to sit him down. So, it just feels like the Hawks are just in position to win this thing. And if at any point in the season they look like they're going to slip and fall back, I think the owner, Mr. Sohn, is just going to go out and buy some new players and plug those guys in so that they can win this thing. So I don't think they're going to be stopped. The Buffaloes are the best team to maybe get in their way and be a speed bump, but I think they're going to get to the destination, speed bumps and potholes aside, and win the Pacific League title. And that's not to say that they're going to run away with it. I just think that they're going to finish on top. We've gone through just two teams already, and I can see, I've got SoftBank finishing first. Jim has SoftBank finishing first, and Jason has SoftBank finishing first, and Claudio has them finishing second. So I think we all think highly of what's on the roster. That's pretty clear. It's just a matter of those guys, and they have had a lot of injuries. We talked about the Cuban guys playing last year, Despagne, and not playing last year is what they did. They mostly didn't play, Despagne and Gracial, and they still had a great season in terms of having a chance to win the title, the pennant.
And Maury was gone, and
a lot of injuries.
Gone, and Gita missed a third of the season and didn't play well part of the season, and it was a pretty horrendous year for them. And they still all the things they did to go right that didn't turn their way. I mean, this team's aching to do better. Whether they will or not is of course the $1 million question.
Yeah, but I think we all feel like they're going to do well.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Next up, the Lions. And for some reason, nobody wants to do the Lions, and I always get stuck with them every year. And
I would have been happy to do the Lions, except you jumped on them first. I didn't have any preferences this year, so.
Oh, really? Well, you should have told me that ahead of time. Then
Yeah, but that would require me to answer emails in a timely fashion.
That's right. The guys who chime in whenever they wake up. All right. All right. So for the Lions, who finished third last year, expected rotation, Kona Takahashi, lefty Dietrich Enns, he's coming back. Kaito Yoza, Kaima Taira, they're going to convert him to a starter, I heard. So that's going to be interesting. He's going to come out of the bullpen and closer and set up role and try to start. Tatsuya Imai and Chihiro Sumida. And then a collection of guys from whom not many on the outside, I think we really know what to expect. So good luck with those guys. I assume they're going to be some quality pitchers in there. I know they have a rookie pitcher who they're high on, but we'll have to see how they do. Key additions, I would have to say the manager, Katsuo Matsui, he's going to be first team manager. And then right-hander Jesus, and you're going to have to help me with this, Claudia. I'm so glad we have you on. I always say this every year when we get to the Latin names, but Tinoco?
Tinoco.
Tinoco, okay.
Simple, straightforward. It's not
Tinoco, okay.
Tinoco,
all right.
yes.
And then outfielder Mark Payton, who was last with the White Sox of his many teams. And then infielder David McKinnon. He comes over from the Athletics, and a few draft picks who, made a couple of headlines early, and guys they have some high hopes for. And roster hits include the aforementioned Tomoya Mori, and then Brian O'Grady. I believe he's off in Korea playing. and a number of depth guys like Birch Smith and some other imports, some of whom are still looking for work, but they basically changed out almost all their imports. So the outlook for me is, from where we're looking now on paper, it appears that the Lions really lost more than they brought in, and the pitching looks more like, I want to say hit and miss, but I think it's going to be hit and hope they miss, and throw it and hope they miss. And but I do like Gakuto Wakabayashi. He's going to be back and healthy from the start of the season, and I know it's not a great replay. I know they're going to have some guys to replace Mori at catcher, but I don't know that they brought in enough on the offensive side. We'll have to see about that. The starting pitching, it just seems like it was a problem here and there last year, and it's going to be a problem that back half of the rotation again this year. And even Takahashi as the ace, he had his moments when he was struggling out there. He would walk a bunch of guys and make a pitch and get out of innings and get out of trouble, but then he'd get back into trouble the next inning, and then he didn't last long, or and then there were games where he just was lights out. So he'll have to steady that ship. Sosuke Genda, I think he's the best shortstop in the world. I don't know that there's any metric that he's not going to be leading in the world. And I did see a special on him the other night, and he talked about how he approaches fielding ground balls, and how he, like a golfer, he finds a line, and he goes to the line and he gets his glove ready in time, and he gets ready to throw, because he said his arm isn't that strong. And that's his problem. That has been his problem as a shortstop. And I just don't see any problems. I mean, we're talking a guy trying to really polish his craft and even get better. So according to analytics experts, I believe in the States as well, he's just off the charts. So that's going to help. And hopefully he doesn't get hurt. And I can see them maybe lacking in some of the power numbers they've had over the past years, but maybe changing their style of baseball. I want to see how they play under Matsui as a manager. I think I talked about that on the previous show, but I just don't know that there's enough depth for them to survive, even in a weakened, it appears to be a weakened Pacific League. And I have them finishing in last place. Claudio.
Well, I agree with what you said about they didn't bring as much as they lost. I think they are definitely going to take a step back this year. Pitching is okay. I think the offense is going to go down a bit with losing Mori. And then there's also the question mark about how well they're going to do in the first year under Kazuo Matsui as a manager. So, they finished third last year. I have them finishing fourth. I think they're maybe not as bad as going to last place, but definitely they're going to take a step back. So I have them finishing fourth this year.
All right, Jason.
Yeah, last year the Lions, if you look at their pitching, they were statistically the number one pitching staff in the league. They were I want to say they were number two starting, maybe number one or two in the bullpen as well. But they were the number one pitching staff. And they had an ERA under 3 as a unit. The last time the Lions were under 3 as a unit was in 1995. They've only been under 320 since 1995, about 3 times. So nothing really suggests that they can do it again. The FIP numbers for the guys and the FIP numbers are all sort of suggest that they're going to be worse than they were last year. I think last year they just somehow, some way, whatever they threw out, it worked. And I think they walked a lot of batters, and they just kind of put runners on base and didn't give up a lot of home runs, didn't give up a lot of runs, and scored enough. And they finished in third place. But I feel like they're going to regress on the mound this year. I feel like they, as you and John and Claudio both said, they lost more than they're bringing in. So I wonder about how they're going to look offensively. Genda's a superb shortstop, but he's not going to do a whole lot for them offensively. Takeya Nakamura starting. He's showing his age. Kuriyama's already old. So I haven't been last place just because I don't think that their pitching staff is going to hold up as well as it did this year. If it does hold up, then I can easily see them finishing third place, maybe second place if they get enough offense. But history would suggest that if you're not a great pitching staff for about 20 years and all of a sudden you just have a superb year, it seems like the law of averages says you're gonna go the other way, and maybe they turn their corner and they're gonna have a really good year this year too. You never know. Don't yes, I have no idea because I haven't seen them pitch much in the spring. But just going off what little I know now, I'm just gonna pick them in last place.
Yeah, I think it was an outlier year. I think you're right, Jim.
Interesting. I think the story for the Lions that everything kind of went wrong for them last year, especially from the point of injuries. They have that flock of young talent, and they were forced to try to play like SoftBank and just bring up all the kids from the farm team and, patch holes all season. Actually, it was not just last year, it was the year before. And they ended up with pretty much it wasn't the worst. It was easily the worst offense in Japan. And they did that with Hotaka Yamakawa being Hotaka Yamakawa for first time in a couple of years. So I think, Mori's loss is going to hurt them. He kind of had a defensive peak a couple of years ago, and he's become an ordinarily a solid defensive catcher. But his offense is also sort of regressed to the mean. But I like the young talent, and I also like the young talent, particularly in the outfield. It's a shame they can't have 6 outfielders because they got a bunch of good young ones, and I think some of these guys with playing time are gonna continue to impress people. We don't know how Kazuo Matsui is going to manage, but here's the thing: he's been watching these guys play every day, for the last 2 years. So
on the farm,
so nobody knows them better, and that's really the thing when you have a team that is, looking to sort through the talent. You have the farm manager comes up, and he's in a position not to be swayed by the people who say this guy can play because we think he should be able to play because we rated him highly when he was an amateur. He can go beyond the politics because he's been through the wars with these guys. I think that's really the advantage. I mean, the Lions didn't have a particularly good record with him managing in the Eastern League, but that's the thing. I have the Lions finishing third.
Whoa.
Yeah, well, it's not a real competitive. I'll be honest. I don't think second through sixth is all that competitive in the Pacific League. There's not all that much of a gap this year.
Yes, so hard to distinguish. Yes.
Yeah, I think the Hawks are pretty much going. I do think the Hawks are going to run away with it, and I have them finishing third. And actually, I would say second as well. Second is also not really a real rock solid place, but that's.
If you got the defending champion in last place, I think you're basically telling us second place is up for grabs here.
Oh yeah, so
interesting.
Actually, my original form, if you're curious, my original formula had them finishing fifth, and I decided to add 1 win for the youngest team in each league and subtract 1 win for the oldest team in each league. So there you go.
System formulas.
Yep.
Can you get a potion in there too?
Hey, it worked out. It worked out remarkably well last year. So don't laugh.
I'm only laughing because it's funny.
I missed the joke.
So did I. I'm just curious because we don't really the 3 of us. I guess we were all jumbled here. The other 3 of us, other than Jim. Jason has him finishing last. I have him finishing last, and then Claudio with a 4th place finish. But we all seem to be considered, I guess, concerned about the pitching, and you're not worried about the pitching, or your formula or system is
Yeah,
not
I
worried
don't
about the
worry.
pitching.
I don't really have. I'll be honest. I don't really have time to do that at this stage of the game. So
Oh yeah,
so
a lot of what I'm going on here is feel, because we're going to come up on the Eagles, and I have a soft spot in the heart for the Eagles, but I keep looking at what I see on the roster, and the soft spot is it's turned into a weak spot. So I totally understand. So let's go to the Eagles, and that's Jim.
yeah, the Eagles are. Let me hold my notes here. Come on. Okay. The Eagles, the expected rotation is Takayuki. Well, I mean, geez, well, just rinse and repeat from the last couple of years. Takayuki Kishi, Masahiro Tanaka, Takahiro Norimoto, Takahisa Hayakawa. I'm going to add with Wataru Karashima, who came back last year and pitched fairly well. We may see. We also might see. I don't know who else is going to fit into that, but there are some candidates to break into the rotation. They will no longer have Hideaki Wakui to kick around anymore.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Okay,
I'm taking my blanket and I'm going to go sleep somewhere else.
He's finally reached the place we expected him to get when he originally left for the Eagles, which is out. Okay. But he fooled us, and more power to him. The key additions are Manny Banuelos. I need help from Claudio with his name as well.
It's like complicated, yeah.
This is a hard one for me. Banuelos?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, he's a 32-year-old, and this guy, I'll tell you, he's a lefty, which is great. And he knows about pitching in Asia. He spent a long time pitching in Taiwan, so he's pitched all over the place. This is a guy who's going to be durable and adaptable. Whether he's any good or not is another question, but that'll be interesting. Michael Franco, who's mostly with the Washington Nationals most recently. He's a 30-year-old third baseman, and he's a contact hitter who had power when he was quite young, but he doesn't draw walks or hit for average. His advantage is that because he's a right-handed hitter. Anyway, the Eagles led in the number of plate appearances against left-handed pitchers, which is not a surprise because that's what they do. They face a lot of left-handers all year, and they were by a wide margin. If you're playing for the Eagles, you're going to see a lot of left-handed left-handed pitchers. So Michael Franco is going to fit into that with Hideo Asamura as being the biggest benefactors from that. And I'm doing my Michael Westby impression. My pages are not coming up properly. They also got, in addition to Michael Franco, they got Toshiki Abe, who's a player I always kind of liked. He's always been a kind of a good player. But I'm not certain how much the Eagles really needed another over 30 second right-handed hitting second baseman, because the one they got wasn't good enough or not. The key roster hit for them was, well, I could say Hideaki Wakui, because he had an amazing ability to surprise the heck out of people who were just tired of his act, and he'd come up and they'd bring him up from the farm team, and he'd throw that sinker he worked on and surprise the heck out of batters. So I think they are going to miss. They're going to have a couple of days where they're going to say, "Boy, we sure wish we had Hideaki Wakui instead of Toshiki Abe." But I think those days will be limited. You could probably count them if you've lost a couple of fingers on one hand. The main roster hit, I think, would be late inning reliever Alan Busenitz. They didn't really lose a lot. The biggest thing they're going to lose is their youth. This is the Over the Hill gang. They're the oldest. They are the oldest team in NPB, I think. I'm pretty sure they are. Masahiro Tanaka was healthy last year, which is great, and he was often really good. But the rest of the pitching staff underperformed. Now, I think they're due for a bounce back from that. The one other interesting thing is that Kazuhisa Ishii, who was named general manager in the hopes of signing more foreign talent and getting more production from the foreign talent. Now, I don't know about you guys. Yeah, well, I laughed too. I thought I laughed at the time, and I laugh now because I thought my recollection is the Eagles pretty much got nothing when he was the GM, but there are teams that did much worse than the Eagles. In the Pacific League, the Central League were almost all better in terms of their import production during his tenure. But in any case, the Eagles must have thought he wasn't doing that job very well because he was a general and now he's just a field. Yeah. He's the field. He's gone from general manager to just field manager. And my prediction for the Eagles is 4th place.
All right. Rakuten in 4th place for Jim. I'm going to go next. So the top of that rotation is looking pretty worn out. Let's face it. I don't think Ma-kun was particularly good the first year. He came back after being in the States, and he was not great last year at all. God bless him. He just doesn't look right. Norimoto, he's coming off a season that saw him slow down and missed a lot of games and finally not stomp and complain that he was being taken out of games in the middle of an inning or before he wanted to leave or whatever that was with his attitude. And he just acquiesced and said, okay, I'm coming out. And that just to me, was a chink in the armor, letting us all know that he's slowing down. And then Kishi, when he's there, he's pretty good, but he's just not there all the time. So when I look around, Hayakawa got injured. I believe he had some surgery in the off season as well. So that's the top 4 guys. So they're all question marks. It was all I could do not to pick this team to finish in last place. And you're right. The Eagles didn't lose that much in terms of guys going out. They just didn't gain a lot either. They just kind of stood pat and watched as the cars drove by this way and that way. Didn't get on anything. And, I don't know what you said earlier, Jim, talking about after 1st and 2nd place, it's all kind of murky among all these teams. And
well, actually, I was wrong. I misstated. I think after 1st place, it's all a little murky.
Well, okay, and I tend to agree with you. I don't think these teams really are showing a lot of separation. I think we might just see a lot of tit for tat, and one team beat up on another team, and then they play every 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, the opposite team beat up on that team, and it's just going to be it is so hard to predict right now, and it's not going to be that entertaining in terms of we're going to see some really good players here or there. I'm hoping we do. I hope some rookies really step up, or some young players really step up, or some exciting players come into their own, and we get to see some good baseball. But I can't predict that that's going to happen from where we sit now. It just looks like we've got an old rotation. We've got some unproven arms in the bullpen. We've got a bunch of guys who are going to be mixed and matched around the infield and in the outfield. And, forget who's on first, who's catching, who's who's doing what. This is a mess. And like I said, it was all I could do not to pick them in last place, because I like to pick surprises and all that stuff. But I just see a 5th place finish for the Eagles, and it really pains me and it hurts my heart that Ma-kun is going to be suffering through this season. But I can't see anything better unless some rookie pops up and all of a sudden starts doing really well. Jason.
Yeah, I'm also worried about the first 3 starters. Although I thought Masaru Tanaka pitched okay last season. He wasn't the Tanaka before he went to the US, but he was pretty decent. I don't think he was, I don't think he was bad. He wasn't great, but he wasn't bad either. I think he's fine. Norimoto took a step back, you're right. And Kishi, again, you're also right. So I think that Hayakawa, I don't think he's even going to be ready for opening day. So there's already a hole that they have to fill. If I remember that from
he
something
did
about
pitch.
camp.
Yeah, he did
Oh,
pitch
he did pitch. Okay.
the other day, but yeah. It was,
He
one of
still
those
may not be
practice
ready
games
for
that I
opening
saw.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he still may not be ready. Who knows? But I think after those first three pitches, there's a pretty good drop off, and they've got to fill that hole. I do think that Manny Banuelos can be a really good pickup for them if he pans out. But that's always a question when you have guys in Japan for the first time. You don't know if they're going to pan out. Michael Franco could be really good. Toshiki Abe, I don't really see. I don't want to say I don't see the point, but I don't see the point of adding him. But one thing he does do is you could play him at second. You can move out somewhere to first, and you could eliminate a little bit of a hole that you got at first base as far as offensively. And Ape is going to be better defensively probably, and Asamura is there now, so you could do that with him, and that could give you a pretty good team or a pretty good infield. But I still think they're going to finish. I don't know. I haven't even picked these out before we start.
Yeah, I was making changes right up until I got on the computer.
So I'm gonna say third. I will miss seeing Hideaki Wakui try to throw about 170 pitches, but we'll get that in Nagoya.
No,
But third
no,
place.
please,
Oh, I
no.
forgot. I do they have Shimuchi is a really good player, and they've got this guy Ryota Takinaka. If he pans out, he could be a pretty good, not addition, but a pretty good player for them. But so third place.
Third place. Okay, Claudio.
I have them finishing last. Again, nothing against the Eagles. I just think that based on what other teams may be doing, I think they're gonna. The only place I have them I have to place them is on last place. But I agree with what you said. I think this is an aging team. I think for the past few years they have had this Yomiuri Giants like signing policy on which you're signing all not retire, but these aging stars that are on their way to retirement. It's like, okay, bring them here. Let's just add them to the team. Like, Asamura went there. He did pretty well in the first couple of years after he joined, but then afterwards it hasn't been that great. And then Takayuki Kishi, and then you had who was it? Daichi Suzuki from Lotte went there, and then a whole bunch of guys are okay. I'm gonna change teams and I'm gonna go to Rakuten. It's like, and they keep piling up these good players, but they're aging. They're getting to a point where they don't produce as well as before. So you have a very old team that has talent, but you don't know that they're gonna be able to sustain that throughout the whole season and perform well. And I remember last year I predicted that they would finish fifth, and somebody on Twitter said like, "Oh, that's crazy! They have the best rotation in Japan and all that stuff." And like, yeah, but it's on paper. But you have to see them on the field and whether they're gonna transform that into actually wins, and they did, and they finished fourth last year. So I have them for last place this year because again I don't think they're gonna do better. I agree with you guys. I think they're gonna go back and do worse than they did last year.
All right.
Well, with that, yeah. we have some news is that nobody's going to pick the Nippon Ham Fighters to finish last.
I guess so. Yeah, I've got Seibu. Jason has Seibu. Jim has Oryx, and now Rakuten with Claudio. So yeah, so take that, the ghost of Big Boss,
former boss.
All right. Well, that does say a little bit about the fighters, but again, like Jim said, the team after the first place team, there's not much difference. So are we really saying that's a lot? All you all have is the ability, in theory, in prediction theory, to play that first round of the playoffs and then exit quietly. All right. Next up, the Marines, and that's Jim.
No, that's me.
Oh, next up,
Saved me
Marines.
there.
See, I've got
Actually, I did the Marines too because I started with them. But yeah, go for it,
Okay, well,
Okay.
I don't know.
Claudio. Go for it.
Oh, okay, yeah, I only gave you one, so you can do the Marines, but just to know, it wasn't a mistake. That's the lineup that I sent, I believe, had Jim doing the Marines, so fine. Go ahead, Claudio.
Okay, well, additions. The four Latin players came in: Christopher Mercedes and Gregory Polanco from the Giants, and then Luis Perdomo and Luis Felipe Castillo, who's when they announced their signing, I just Googled Luis Castillo, a picture came up, and I put it in. And all my Dominican followers like, hey, that's not the right Luis Castillo, because there's another one who pitches in Major League named Luis Castillo as well, right?
That's
So
the good one, right? The one who went to Seattle last year, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So I was like, oops, sorry about that. So then I started calling him Luis Felipe Castillo because that's his middle name. So that helps me differentiate between this and the one that's in Major League. So now Luis Felipe Castillo came in. And he's a good pitcher. He did pitch for the Dominican Republic in the Olympics. And then we have Hirokazu Sawamura that came back and then joined the team. Subtractions, Roberto Osuna, who went to the Hawks. Colombian Tyron Guerrero, he pitched well. I don't know. I mean, he wasn't fantastic, but he had good numbers. I don't know why they got rid of him. And then Brandon Laird and Leonis Martin that were supposed to be the big bats last year, and they didn't do anything. The rotation.
And Adeni.
And Adeni Echavarria. Sorry, yes, you're right.
Say it one more time. That's so beautiful. One more time.
Adeni Echavarria.
Oh, so beautiful.
All right. So rotation. I have Rocky Sasaki, Ayumu Ishikawa, Manabu Mima, Christopher Mercedes probably going to be there, Kota Futaki, and Daiki Washita, I guess. I mean, they had good rotation. They had good pitchers. Let's see how Ishikawa does this year. He's been up and down. Let's see how Mima does this year. I really like Mercedes coming in. I think he didn't get enough run support and enough confidence from the Giants. He does get injured every now and then, but I think he's a really good pitcher. And with run support and bullpen support, he can win some games because he normally starts the season, 5-1, 6-1, and then he doesn't win again for the rest of the year. And again, a lot of that has to do with he wasn't getting run support in the Giants. So being here, I think he has a chance to do better. And he's a really good guy and good pitcher too. So I'm rooting for him here. Hopefully he's going to have a really good season and help the pitching staff at Lotte. Have them.
Hey, being a good guy has nothing to do with results.
No, I know that, but
because I had a friend of mine on Twitter years ago saying, "Well, this guy should be safe. He's a really good guy and he's a Christian." I'm like, no, man, This is baseball.
I agree. Anyway, So I think he's a talented player and he has a chance to help the team. I hope he has a good year. I have Lotte finishing in third place. I think they can, because I think they underperformed last year. They were we totally jinxed them. Of course, we picked them to finish first last year, and they finished fifth.
There's no such thing as jinx.
So they were supposed to have a good year last year, and most of their imports didn't perform. So if this year they have a good year in that sense, I think they're gonna do better, and I see them finishing third. I think they can make the playoffs if they got all their stuff working together. And I think Polanco can help if he goes if he has a similar offensive numbers as he did last year with the Giants. Everybody was complaining about his defense, but if he's a DH here, then he can forget about defense and just focus on the hitting side, and I think that could help. I mean, he's not going to be able to do by himself what Laird and Martin were supposed to do, but I think he can help the team in that sense. And again, because the other teams, I don't have them doing much better, I think Lotte has a chance to finish in third place. So I like how they look, and I hope they do well this year.
Yeah, it seemed like with Polanco, sometimes when he was in the field for the Giants, he forgot about defense. But yeah, okay. Jason.
Yeah. Also with the Marines, you forgot the other two new additions: the post-customary yummy facial hair of Mercedes and Polanco. Because anybody who leaves the Giants, they have to grow a beard to just show that they don't play for Yomiuri anymore. It seems like, but obviously they're pitching. Everything starts with the Roki Sasaki and how good he is, and too bad that he can't pitch just 6 days. But Atsuki Tanichi, however you say his name, I forget. Tanichi, I think he's coming back. And he was pretty good, and I think he's gonna have a chance to be pretty good again. So we'll see how he comes back. And Ojima, decent pitcher. I wonder where they're gonna get their runs from, because even though Laird and Martin overall didn't do much, you still have to account for them in the lineup. You still had to account for their presence. They could still run into a ball and knock a ball out of the park, especially there. CC Mercedes, another thing I will say about him too is I think he's a solid pitcher. And I know a couple of Japan series ago, he was one of the few guys that Hard trusted to actually pitch a full game, because he wasn't one of the guys getting pulled out of every game like everyone else was. So I think he has a chance to be decent, but at the same time, it's a lot different pitching at your home games at Tokyo Dome and then going into that wind that's going to be blowing all over in your face in Chiba. And the same for Polanco. Although he's not going to be in the field much, but still, for Mercedes, I think that, I know a lot of pitchers have told me that it's just funky there, standing on the mound with the way the wind blows. And you're going from a dome to that. But I think losing Osuna is a really big thing for them, because I don't trust their closer anyway. And Osuna was Osuna was not a good guy. He was a good pitcher. And Sawamura, I'm not sure what Sawamura is going to add. He's good. He's decent. He probably can come back and be successful for them. But I guess Yasuda is going to be the number 4 batter now. They've got this other kid whose first name I forget, Yamaguchi. He's another guy that their hope is going to come on. Koki Yamaguchi. Yeah, okay. Koki Yamaguchi is a guy they're hoping is going to come along. But there's a lot of hope with the Marines, I think. And if all that pans out, then they're going to be a pretty good team. If it doesn't pan out, then they're not going to be a pretty good team. But I think they're probably 5th place. Do I have 5th place open?
Yes, you do.
5th place.
Yeah, 4th and 5th.
Yeah, I think 5th place there. Did you mention Perdomo? He's there too. I don't remember. Yeah,
he did not. Yeah, we did not mention him.
Luis Perdomo, he's there too, so he could help them out. So, but yeah, I got him in 5th place.
All right, yeah, I was going to mention Perdomo. I don't think you mentioned him, Claudio, but maybe your pronunciation was so smooth that we just didn't catch it. And also, new manager Masato Yoshi. And I think that's a big addition. And he's with the WBC at the moment doing on pitching coach duty for the national team, but he'll be back. So he's not even in camp with his team to really instill things. So that's kind of worrying.
It's funny that he's Kuriyama's pitching coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, well, he is for now.
Well, what is punch without Judy? You got to have punch and Judy, so you can't fight air.
The games haven't started yet, so he give him time. He's still got 9 games in which to quit.
And not only that, Yuki Saito has not been retired that long. They can bring him back out of retirement to pitch for the national team. But anyway, I'm looking at the roster hits above, and there are a lot of those, and they probably have some young players. Cole Matsukawa, the catcher, I think he could explode at the plate because he came out of high school and was catching a bunch of games for them last year. So if he gets a clue at the plate, he can be a factor. I think Yamaguchi, you talked about, Jason. I really like this guy. He kind of had a little bit of a breakout season last year with limited time, hitting 16 home runs. And I think if Polanco figures things out in the PL fast and Sawamura makes a difference, maybe he ends up being their closer. I think that makes for a better situation than what we're seeing right now, which is, again, we just don't know what's going on with this team. I really wanted to put the Marines in second place. And the more I looked, the more I thought, nah, I really like Oryx a little bit better here. I like Oryx a little bit better on the mound. I like Oryx a little bit better at the plate. I just like Oryx a little bit better. So I had to drop them down, and they kept dropping, though. And that's the problem. And they struggled at times with the offense. Those guys are gone, especially Laird and Martin. I think the imports didn't perform as they expected, and they put those guys out there with expectations and got nothing back most of the time. So if they get any kind of production from any of the imports, and at least if Yoshi puts guys out there who are competent and can, move runners over and drive runners in from third with fewer than 2 outs, I think that'll help with the offense in a little bit, but it's not going to be enough to make a big difference. And, we're going to see probably Roki Sasaki, even though he struggled tonight in his WBC game and start against the lowly light hitting Dragons and made a bunch of pitches, he was able to come back, figure things out, and pitch some solid innings for the team before he left. So I really like what he's going to do as a leader of the rotation. Again, after that, Ishikawa is a competent pitcher. Ojima is a good pitcher. If Mercedes and Mima can do anything, and Futaki and guys like that, I could see them doing really well and probably staying in the race. But as the season wanes, I think they're going to drop down. They've been doing it the past 2 seasons. They're not going to be able to finish out the season, probably not that deep with injuries. And they're going to end up finishing just outside the playoffs in 4th place, in my opinion. Jim, and this is really interesting with Jim because he has him finishing second. That means the Fighters are 5th, but he has him finishing 5th. That means he's got the Fighters finishing 2nd. So I'm really interested in seeing how this plays out.
You had them 4th?
4th.
John?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't have them. I did not have the Fighters finishing 4th, the Marines finishing 4th. I have the Marines finishing 2nd.
Oh, thank goodness.
And I love Hisanori Yasuda. And I think there's some, and again, this is the subjective side of that completely objective analysis that has them second. And the subjective side is I love Masato Yoshii, and I love him for the reasons. I mean, Karuhito Iguchi had this sort of cold, rational side to him, but it was probably more cold than rational. He's a really nice guy in person, but as a manager, I'll bet he was a pain in the butt. And because he's just intense. And Yoshi is a guy that's like, this is your job. You figure it out. I'm here to help. Go figure it out. He's much more low key. Of course, he also gets worked up, as we talked about the bit with his experience with Hideki Kuriyama. But that's my take on them. Leonis Martin, Hichavari, I'm going to miss just because he had that way of making, I think they had a thing where they had to put him in the game enough that he made the Pacific, he made the Pro Yaku News best play of the week at least twice a week because he was just remarkable.
Yeah, I had a story.
I'm sorry.
I was waving my hand because I wanted to. I was not going to butt in on you, but I wanted to tell a Yoshi story. When you said that, it reminded me of the story that when I went to do when Yuki Saito had his best season with the Fighters, I went to talk to Yoshi, who was the pitching coach of the Fighters at the time, and I sat down. I think it was an interleague game, and I sat down with him at Tokyo Dome in the dugout, and I said, "So, pitching coach Yoshi, Yuki Saito is getting good results. What's up with that?" And Yoshi looked at me dead in the eye, and he said, "Right." So he is low key, and he is down to earth, and he's in it to win it. He's very serious about the game, but he's not going to lose sleep and lose his hair and struggle with everything else. I mean, if they lose, they lose, but no shot at anybody anywhere in the world about losing hair over, because this is strictly stress and whatever. Well, you're married, so yeah, okay, all right. Well, there's no comment on anybody else. It's just the high stress level of having idiots talk about the fact that you should have pitched someone else when you put a different pitcher in there and that guy happened to be on the mound when another player got a hold of a ball that somebody couldn't catch. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
What day is today? Okay. Yeah, hold on. I had my notes. The reason I didn't see you waving is because I had my notes on the screen. That's why. A couple of things. I like the mention that he's coaching in the WBC. I don't think that's really a big thing. Okay, well, I mean, look, the last two active managers who worked in the WBC both won the pennant that year. And then they complained that it was too big of a burden on them, so they never had an active manager manage the WBC team again. But of course, he's not managing, and I like it that he didn't back out of it. Of course, there's still time considering Kuriyama's the manager. But the other thing I would want to say is that, and the last thing about the Marines, and this is actually about Tadahito Iguchi, I thought his slickest move as manager was not leaking to the press that he wanted to leave. Because I think he learned his lesson, because in 2020, Hideki Kuriyama did that with the fighters. He told everybody he wanted out. And that gave the fighters chance to summon all the people whom he owed favors to. and twist his arm to stay on for one more miserable season with that miserable team. And Hatsuhiko Tsuji did that in 2021, and the Lions pulled out the stops to keep him around. So he told the team after he told the fans.
Right.
And she was like having a beer, and the team called and said, "You're our manager." And he said, like,
he spat that stuff out.
Yeah, but that was his big reaction. I do love Yoshi, and I wish them the best, but I think he's going to be sometimes when you change managers, just that difference in temperament can be a huge shift. I think the Marines, Iguchi had a plan. I love that. I mean, it was a really concrete, well out, but it kind of ached and groaned and sputtered and creaked like it wasn't working, and he hung in there and kept pushing it up that hill, and it wasn't working. And I think there was this sort of frustration from the team, of the players, frustration from the manager, and having a skipper with a clean slate could be the thing. So I'm picking him second.
All right. So
I would say, so I'm picking them second. I would say, and I picked them second, because the two things have nothing to do with each other.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that leaves the big boss who was. So the Nippon Ham Fighters, and that's me. And I guess we do have a new manager, because he dropped the name Big Boss, and he's going to go with his given name, his birth name, Tsuyoshi Shinjo. So that's a different person, because the Big Boss was the id, and this Tsuyoshi Shinjo, I guess, has no ego, right? It's going to just be a guy who has learned, who has matured as a manager, has matured as a leader, and he's going to step in as the new boss, so to speak. Jason.
He just walked across the bridge called the Big Boss Bridge with a bunch of school kids. He hasn't changed a thing except his name. Which is it his kanji name, or is it all caps like Tsuyoshi Nishioka did that year?
I as far as I know, the name, the kanji has not changed. As far as I know. Hey, look, he's not dancing up into the face of or into the camera so that we can see.
Have you seen those uniforms?
Oh yeah, the bowling. The bowling uniforms.
Yeah,
I think he ordered them from a bowling supply.
I think that those are the gesture uniforms.
Yes.
My wife asked if the players were willing to wear that stuff, and I remember one year Bobby Valentine had these three sets of uniforms, and they had pants and shirts that they could mix and match. And if a pitcher won a game, he got to choose the uniform for his next start or something like that. There was some condition. If the pitcher won a home game or something, his next home game, he could pick the uniform. Anyway, Bobby was kind of annoyed because he had these ones that were black pants and red shirts, and he was the only one in the entire organization who liked them. So, and what happened was, I think one day he I don't know this. I'd ask him, but I'm not certain I would get a straight answer. Might get a left hook. I think he blamed the players for not choosing it. He said, they're boycotting my uniform or something. It was weird. It was a weird story. But it's like, I think also what happened was the first two times they wore that uniform, they lost. And I think everybody said good.
Oh, no.
When the team says good that we lost, there's an issue.
There's a problem. All right. Well, let's get into the Nippon Ham and see what's going on over there. Let's see. The expected rotation, Naoyuki Wasawa. Then we've got lefty, old reliable Takayuki Kato. Probably Hiromi Ito, and then Cody Ponce. And after that, maybe the newcomer John Gant. Haruka Nemoto, I think, is a rookie, rookie pitcher, left eye. I did see him pitch the other day. That was the day that Daiki Asama got hurt running into a fence chasing a ball that was cracked off of one of his pitches. So, but who knows? Things get murky after that, so we're not really going to be sure about the rotation there. Key additions, two-way lefty rookie Kota Yazawa, and I did get to see him bat in a practice game the other day. In fact, he hit a home run that day, and then had another hit. And he's a two-way player, and I think Jim has mentioned him a few times on the show since around draft time, and he looks okay. The thing about him is he's really small. He's about 5'8", 5'9", not very big. So I haven't been able to see him pitch yet. I did get to see him hit. He is fast, so that should add some speed in that respect. The key additions, again, Yazawa, John Gant, and then they've got outfielder, infielder, and I guess he can catch, and that's Ariel Martinez. He comes over from Chunichi, and then Torai Fushimi, I think we talked about him moving over from Oryx. Roster hits, Kensuke Kondo is a big one, and I don't know that he's going to tear it up. We talked about the fact that he gets hurt or has a tendency to get hurt and miss chunks of seasons, but he looks good now, and I don't think they're going to once Kondo joins SoftBank from the WBC team, I think they're going to limit his play in the field and make sure to protect him. But also there's Renato Nunez, who didn't really play that much, didn't really do that much last year with them. So he's out. So the second year manager, it's really, like I said, time to grow up. It's time to man up. It's time to boss up and not just be a showman. And we just saw him, Tsuyoshi Shinjo, we saw him play around, tinker, fiddle, whatever words you want to use in terms of him not really being all that serious in trying to win games, but trying to just do things and be different and stand out and get in front of the camera and talk. But as the season went on, I think we saw him get more serious. The losing really got to him. It seemed like on his face, at least, in games. He spent most of the time taking advantage of hiding behind that mask that he was wearing on the bench. And I just think he's going to mature a little bit. Maybe that's wishful thinking, Jason. I don't know. I'm hoping we don't have to see too much of this. The new stadium, I think competing is important for the team. I think putting on a good show in the new stadium is important to the team. It's not going to be just the manager being goofy and being the jester in that big dome. I have a lot of questions about the pitching. Kotaro Kiyomiya, he remains an enigma. I'm patient when it comes to development. I really like guys. I know that they don't all develop at the same speed, but this kid, he's got a beautiful swing. He did make some. I think I saw highlights today that he had 2 hits in 1 inning, and one of them was a double, and he hit the ball really hard. And he's hitting different pitches now, so we don't just see him hitting mistakes. I saw him hit a fairly good pitcher's pitch, and he hit that hard. Maybe Yazawa can do some stuff with this team, but who's the best player on this team? Who's an MVP candidate on this team other than a pitcher? Who leads the team in home runs? Who's going to lead the team in RBIs? Who's going to lead the team in doubles? I can't see. I see so many more questions than I do answers. And again, can the manager really just do more than give it the good old goofy showman type try and make it more like a college try and actually try to win games? Or is he going to just goof off? I have no idea. But the one thing I like to do every year is pick a surprise. And this is going to be my surprise team that's going to somehow move up the rankings and maybe make the playoffs. And I have them finishing somehow with the magic of TV, finishing in 3rd. Claudio.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't have them. I have them finishing 5th, better than last year. But I do believe that they're going to do better than they did last year. I think you're right. I think the experience of the first year has kind of taught Shinji, okay, what things he can do and he can't do, and what things are going to work to help him win some games. And I have faith in Kotaro Kiyomiya. I think he can do better this year. Chusei Manami is really good. Martinez may help. I don't think Ariel Martinez is going to be a big bat, but I think he's going to help. He's going to, help the team produce some runs and stuff. And then they have this. What was the batting champion last year?
Matsumoto.
Matsumoto. I think he can do well as well. I think they're going to do better. The pitching is not bad. I mean, it's not super great, but they have decent pitchers. I think especially Takayuki Kato did very well last year. Hiromi Ito can help. Uwasawa, he wasn't great last year, but I think he can come back and have a decent year. Same with Cody Ponce. I think they can do better. I mean, maybe not well enough to go to the playoffs, but I think they're going to do better than 6th place. So I have them finishing 5th.
Okay. Jason, since you're back. Your mic is muted though.
I also have a bit of a confession to make. I actually have the Marines 4th and the Fighters 5th. So we'll just get that out of the way right now.
Okay, thank you. I'll move them around.
Although to be fair, I may talk myself into putting them 4th in a minute. I don't know.
Okay, but, we'll give you a few minutes. Kuriyama's still around. I mean, you can quit on him. You can quit on him like a Yoshi.
All right, Lotte 4th and Nippon Ham 5th.
Yes.
Okay.
For the moment. Anyway, I like Naoyuki Iwasawa. He's a really good pitcher. He wants to go to the major league, so he's going to be, I guess, extra motivated to, perform well. I think he's good. I think Hiromi Ito's good. The question I had about Takayuki Kato was, he had such a great season. Is that something he can replicate? But I looked and he kind of stopped walking a lot of batters 2 years ago. He stopped giving up a lot of home runs a couple of years ago. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to consider that he can replicate that season. Maybe he won't be as good, but I think he can come really close. And so that gives him 3 really good pitchers right there. I think, is it Ponce or Ponce? I don't know how you say his name.
Ponce.
Okay, yeah, Cody Ponce. You think he's serviceable? Good, nice guy to have sort of back into the rotation. And I don't know much about John Gant or what he can do for them, but maybe he can step in and help this year, and Nemoto also. So I think there's a lot of promise on the pitching staff. Kind of the opposite of Kato, I don't know if Matsumoto can do what he did again. His batting average on balls in play was way higher than the league average. And then I think he's probably going to fall back to earth anyway. It doesn't mean he's going to be a bad player. I just don't know if he's going to be as good as he was this year. And Kondo is a really big hole, and this team it really, really needs Kiyomiya to finally have his breakout. He actually swinging the bat pretty well during the spring practicing. So we'll see if he can keep that up. Chisei Manami is another guy. I really like him, and I really like to see him bust out. Maybe that's this year, maybe that's next year. I'm not sure. Honestly, I wanted to pick the Fighters higher. I just don't know if I can reasonably think that all of their guys who need to kind of have a breakout season are going to do that. And actually, Shinjo, one thing he did, and maybe this is just dumb luck, but doing all his machinations, he saw a lot of players play, and he got to see a lot of guys on the top team, and it's almost like a farm team this year. Now he knows who can play, he knows who can do what in what situation, he knows what players he can, how he can deploy them. Or I would hope he knows that, or his coaching staff at least knows that, because they got to see a lot, and maybe that's him. Maybe he's crazy like a fox. Maybe he's just crazy. I don't know. But either way, if it works, it works. So I would expect them to be better. I'm not sure. If these young guys know how to win yet, which is not the most analytical way to look at it. But I think things should be trending up for the Fighters, and I don't think they're going to go, be that great. That I could see them finishing fourth. I could see everything just coming together and them getting into the playoffs. But I guess logically, I'm going to pick them fifth.
All right, Jim.
Well, I have them fifth. They had been sixth. As I said, I made an adjustment for age. The Fighters are the youngest team in Japan. So I gave them a 1-game bump. So they moved past Oryx.
Youthful exuberance bump.
Yes, I've got it in spades, my brother. The exuberance part.
I know what you were speaking. Yes.
Oh, I'm glad you do. Okay. A couple of things about the Fighters. Kotaro Kiyomiya is really the question, because he got 461. He's got close to 1,200 plate appearances, and he got his first year with 400 plus last year. And this will be a make or break. And the reason I'll say that is because you don't see players who have, well, with a rare exception of former Oryx Buffaloes third baseman, or blue, I guess it was the Buffaloes, and Makoto Shiozaki, who figured out what was wrong with his swing after 14 years as a pro and said, I didn't realize where my foot was. I mean, that's like he could work for the FBI and be one of those guys who said, I believe Donald Trump, because it's unbelievably, how that and Hiroyuki Nakajima's reason for not being able to hit in AAA Sacramento was there was a light in the stands that was a distraction.
I remember you talking about that, and I can't remember if that was even in the first year of the podcast or that was one of our office conversations, but I remember that.
I asked him, he'd been like a 240 hitter his whole career, and then one year he just started hitting 300 and 320, and the year after he hit 320, I said, what'd you do? And he said, it was about 6th or 7th year as a pro. He probably had about 1,800, 2,000 at bats or plate appearances, and he said, I figured out my foot wasn't where I thought it was, the way I was when
at the end of your leg, bud.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't positioned where it was when I was an amateur. I kind of realized that yesterday or 2 years ago, and that made all the difference. And I'm thinking, wow, okay. So anyway, this will be the make or break year. Usually it takes about 400 plate appearances for a player to make the adjustments if he's going to make them. And he's right at that line. If he doesn't make them this year, he ain't. Well, unless he's that, unless it's nobody's telling him where his left foot is, he ain't going to make them. But we saw something. He had a useful season last year. Still 219 is not where he'll want to be, but he showed some plate discipline. He showed a little bit of plate discipline, which is something that was more or less completely lacking his first 3 years. So we'll see about that. The comments about Shinjo are, I think, more or less on target. As we talked about in previous podcasts, I don't think he has what he's lacking is kind of a moral compass. he just, whichever way it happens, the spinner happens to be spinning that day. Because last year we learned that as a player, he never said he wanted to win from the beginning of the season. And this year he said, since he was a player, he always wanted to win from the beginning of the season. He just reinvents his past on a daily basis. But
too much medication, man.
It could be. I read into it when, I think you're right about the split personality, and I think Jason's also right. I think when I read into it when his opening press conference is he had two. He was a little schizoid. He had these joke answers, and then he had these answers that sounded like they might be jokes, but were really dead on serious and really made a lot of sense. And the things he did with the players made a lot of sense. And I think I agree with Jason. I think the losing really got to him. He just never imagined. I think he never imagined losing would be so painful. I think he was going to say, I can handle it. I'm big enough. I'm a big enough boss for this. And he realized he wasn't. It really hurts. And I think other things really hurt. And again, Atsunori Inaba's a really smart guy. And I figure I think there probably was an intervention. I think he said, look, we tried it your way a year, and and we got some things. We saw a lot of things we liked. So let's go somewhere else. Of course, the other thing was he said, I'm going to learn from the coaches and let them do their things. And the first time the team made a bunch of mistakes, it said it's all the coach's fault. So he's got a little bit of Bobby Valentine in there too. So go for it.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I did have one more comment about the fighters, because the fighters, it's funny because about the last decade, the fighters have been kind of waist deep in catchers and former catchers. It's like they can't figure out which of the guys. So, of course, what did they do in the offseason but get two more guys who catch? They figure we lost one former catcher in Kensuke Kondo, so let's get two more. We're not catching up fast enough.
Catching up. I'm catching on to what you're throwing there. Well, interesting stuff. I mean, I think, like you said, the top team SoftBank. Not that we can all, we're all in agreement on SoftBank, because Claudio has the works repeating, or three-peating actually, but we have them in the top two. All of us do, and so I think that's the consensus. And then, yeah, I think we're looking at some problem areas on all of these teams, but what we don't know is who's going to really break out, who's going to have that rookie who's a 6th round or 5th round draft pick and is playing on a daily basis and contributing, or who's that importer really pops for some team and turns out this guy is a real star. And I'm not sure if you guys got to see the special that we did with Trey Hillman and Dan Evans and Aaron Guile, but we talked about the fact that we haven't seen imports come over here and become big stars in recent years. Even the guys we have, even Alex Ramirez, he's popular, but I don't know how popular, especially when you compare him to Randy Bass.
He's got a growing fan base.
Yeah, he's making his own growing fan base. That reminds me of the line I said about somebody with whom we worked, and I said the only way you may get people to love him was to make them.
Does that always work, John?
Huh? Yes, I'm going to answer yes.
Okay, good. No more trouble at home.
No more? Well, wait a minute. There's one I didn't make.
Troublemaker.
Anyway, thank you so much, guys. This has been awesome. Always love talking to you guys and getting your perspective, and this has been awesome. Now, we don't know when we're going to have what the lineup is going to look like. I know Claudio is available for the Central League prediction show. We are hoping to get Jason as well. So we'll cross that bridge when it breaks in front of us or collapses.
The good news is that because I based my predictions on what teams did last year, the Central League's all done.
Good. So it should be easy. We just have a good conversation about how boring and how there's no two-way players in the Central League or anything, and no excitement. Anyway,
Akira Nails in the Central League. They
who's
refused
that?
to make him a two. Akira Nails in the Central League.
Oh yeah.
Akira
Yeah.
Neo and
Junior Nishi has a new
Junior
manager.
Nishi for the
Yeah.
Tigers.
And he's
Yeah.
got a new manager who may let him do it. Who knows?
Well, I wouldn't say they're two-way players, but they have two-way opportunities because they get to bat.
Well, Junior Nishi, I definitely think he could be. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
could be and are different.
no, it's different, but yeah, I think if he were in the Pacific League, I think if he were with the Fighters, I think definitely they would have opened that door. The Tigers couldn't close it fast enough. Like, quick before anybody sees this thing's open. We're not open to two-way players. No. Stop it.
But they used him. They let him pinch hit a couple times last year.
They did.
That was as far as
what they did was
go.
they didn't pull him out of an inning when it seemed like it was time for a pinch hitter. They let him bat as a pitcher to stay in a game. I do remember that one against the Giants.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up. So I think we'll either be back in 3 weeks or somewhere in the middle of the week after the 13th. But I think our target date is to record the next special is the 13th of March. So we'll see you at that time. Oh. So anyone who has questions, we probably won't have time to answer them for the next show, but the show after that, we'll get back into, because the season will have started. So we'll get back into our regularly scheduled programming. But hit us up on Twitter at JBW Podcast with the hashtag High Heat. Send questions by email to yakyujohn@gmail.com or go to the Facebook page, leave us a message there. And if you're watching on YouTube, just leave us a message or hit us up there as well. We will talk to you next time. Thank you very much, Claudio. Thank you very much, Jason and Jim. Enjoy your baseball.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 See you at the ballparks.